What do you know about the Declaration of Independence?
It's a document.
I don't know. I'm not too sure. Is it July 4th?
It was written in July 1776 by Thomas Jefferson.
I think that we got our independence.
We hold these truths to be self-evident,
that all men are created equal,
That they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights.
That among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
The colony's explosion of rebellion in the 1770s against King George III set forth the fight that later led to a war for independence. Retaliating as a result of the rebellion, the Parliament passed the American Prohibitory Act, which was designed to attack the economy of the colonies by seizing ships and cargoes and stopping the British trade with the colonies.
Give me your shift. Come on. Yes.
No.
Give it over. Yes. King George also imposed taxes on the colonists in order to pay the debt after the French and Indian War.
Tax. Wait, come back. Tax.
And later, due to the Revolutionary War, he negotiated treaties with German states and hired German soldiers called Hessians to fight in America. These abuses and neglection of the king brought on the colonies further convinced the Americans that the king was treating colonies as a foreign entity, and separating Britain is completely necessary and justifiable.
By 1776, the American colonies had been engaged in the American Revolutionary War against Britain for almost a year. As tensions began to increase, the colonies leaned towards an independent nation seemed inevitable.
On January 9, 1776, a cry for independence was heard through the words of Thomas Paine's booklet, Common Sense. He argued for the inevitable fight for independence and promoted the idea of a republic government. Hence, the message hidden in Common Sense finally reached millions of people. His reasonable arguments changed the perspective of many Americans, leading them to help support the idea of an independent nation.
Though many Americans, including the Second Continental Congress, felt the need for confliction and the breaking of ties with the mother country, others decided peace was another possible option. Even with the hope that somehow the colonies would settle an agreement with King George III, the neglected peaceful petitions and requests made by the First Continental Congress changed the minds of those who wanted peace with Britain.
Your Majesty, the colonies have sent a petition for peace.
Right, throw it away.
Not all of the colonies wanted independence from Britain, but Massachusetts and Virginia were two strong supporters of it. In May 1776, the Virginia legislature or government told its delegates to oppose independence.
Finally, in the summer of 1776, a call for American independence rung simultaneously with the voice of the delegate Richard Henry Lee. His words thundered in the Pennsylvania State House as he read his formal statement known as the Lee Resolution. He states, resolved, that these united colonies are, and of right ought to be, free and independent states, that they are absolved from all allegiance to the British Crown, and that all political connection between them and the state of Great Britain is and ought to be totally dissolved.
The resolution Richard Henry brought forth was an expression of the situation that was already beginning to occur throughout the colonies. When the Second Continental Congress met for the first time in May of 1775, King George III did not reply to the petition for redress of grievances sent by the First Continental Congress. So Congress began to take up the responsibilities of a national government. By July of 1775, it had already established a Continental Army and a Continental currency.
When the Continental Congress voted on the Lee Resolution, only 7 voted for it. Delegates from other colonies held back their votes until they were able to confirm with their legislators about the Lee Resolution.
Finally, on June 11, 1776, Congress brought together 5 well-educated and intelligent men to form what is known as the Committee of Five. This committee consisted of John Adams from Massachusetts, Roger Sherman of Connecticut, Benjamin Franklin from Pennsylvania, Robert R. Livingston from New York, and Thomas Jefferson of Virginia. Each represented different colonies of America.
As one of the youngest members of Congress, Thomas Jefferson was a remarkable, polished writer. The committee contemplated and reasoned that if the writer of the Declaration was a Southerner, it would show the support for independence outside of New England, and thus he was chosen by the committee to be the main drafter of the Declaration of Independence.
Before Jefferson was able to begin writing, the committee participated in many meetings to discuss and organize the ideas that should be included in the Declaration. Ideas from John Locke and Jean-Jacques Rousseau were incorporated into the document. Their philosophies justified the actions the colonies were going to take by declaring their separation with England. Two main ideas that were used were John Locke's theory of natural rights and Jean-Jacques Rousseau's social contract. Men are born with natural rights, and it is the government's job to protect those rights. If the government fails to do so, the people have the right to overthrow the government, and thus the government authority must come only from the consent of the governed.
After several revisions, Jefferson revealed his draft to the members of the Committee of Five. Franklin and Adams made a few corrections. From there, the draft was brought up to Congress on June 8, 1776.
The Second Continental Congress debated about the Lee Resolution on July 1, 1776. Many, like John Adams, were boiling with passion for independence. Others, such as John Dickinson of Pennsylvania, opposed the idea of independence, arguing that it was too dangerous and risky to take such actions. He reasoned that independence would lead the colonies to abandon the protection of Britain, and hence Dickinson proposed a safer path, which would be to make peace with the mother country.
After that day, only 9 colonies voted for independence. Pennsylvania and North Carolina opposed it. 2 delegates from Delaware were divided, and that was until a third one came and broke the tie. And New York had not yet confirmed with the legislatures on the final decision.
On July 2, 1776, the delegates finally made an official vote. 12 of the 13 colonies voted for Lee's resolution. The only colony was New York, which had not yet handed in a vote. Within days, New York finally took its stand on a vote for independence. The final ballot made the total vote unanimous.
The last step of independence had arrived. It was the announcing and declaring of independence. Congress then turned their attention to Jefferson's draft of the Declaration of Independence.
As the document was discussed word by word, the changes and corrections were made. Congress took out and corrected words, phrases, and had even taken out whole paragraphs.
Finally, the Declaration was approved by the Second Continental Congress on July 4, 1776. The actual signing of this declaration finally took place on August 2nd. One by one, each member of Congress signed their name for the independence they deserved.
The Declaration was made up of 3 parts. The first part consisted of the ideas on which the Declaration laid its foundation on, known as the Preamble. It spoke of people's God-given rights and how those rights cannot be taken away.
The second part contains a list of charges against King George III for abusing and neglecting the colonies, such as the imposed taxation without approval, which brought up the issue of taxation without representation.
The final part includes the most important part, which is the declaring of independence and the signatures of all members of Congress.
As the words of the Declaration were being read across the colonies, bells rung and people cheered. Now, independence and liberty had been declared. The only thing left to do was to win it, and the colonies finally achieved this in 1783.